Eva stood by the window, taking in full bloom of the roses in the garden. Their vivid pinks and reds were a striking contrast to the gloomy clouds of hopelessness that had descended upon her life. She heard the kids laughing in the neighbor's yard, a painful reminder of the empty space in her own house. She let out a long sigh, an unspoken anguish hurting in her heart. Richard, her spouse, used to be the source of her happiness. They met in college, fell madly in love, and were married not long after graduation. Their love story had the makings of a fairy tale. Their lives was happy for the first several years. They developed prosperous jobs, saw the world, and dreamed of having a family of their own. However, the lack of a child cast an increasingly large shadow over their lives as the years went by. There was an accusation between them that they had not spoken. Richard had quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, accused Eva of being the cause of their childlessness for years. The cause of their infertility had remained unknown despite a plethora of medical testing and therapies, but the guilt had quietly fallen on her shoulders. Eva averted her gaze and covered her eyes. Her voice was hardly audible above a whisper when she said, "I'm going to the garden." She had to get away from the oppressive atmosphere that surrounded them, even if it was just for a little while. She sought comfort in the garden among the flowers she had cultivated with such care. She wished she could instill in Richard the patience and care that each flower demonstrated. She shed a few tears as she knelt beside the roses, inhaling their scent. With little change in their circumstances, the days stretched into weeks and the weeks into months. Richard started to withdraw more and more, working long hours without talking about their future. Eva, on the other hand, took great comfort in assisting others and devoted herself to her gardening and volunteer work in the community. The phone rang one evening when Eva was preparing dinner. It was Dr. Mitchell, a family friend and longtime doctor. "Eva, I have some news," Dr. Mitchell remarked, a hint of hesitancy in her voice. "I looked over your situation once more and spoke with an infertility specialist colleague of mine. We believe that Richard would benefit from taking more examinations." Eva felt her heart skip a beat. With caution, she questioned, "Do you think he might be the cause?" "It's possible. Male infertility can sometimes be overlooked or misdiagnosed. I think it's worth exploring further." Eva thanked the doctor and hung up, with her thoughts racing. How would Richard respond to this proposal? She was aware of his sensitivity to the subject and his history of opposing additional testing for himself. But their marriage hinged on her making an effort. Eva gently brought up the matter as they ate supper that night. "I talked to Dr. Mitchell today, Richard. She said you might need to have some more testing done." Richard's brows narrowed as his fork paused in midair. "Additional assessments? Have we not done enough of it already?" "I am aware, but she believes we might have overlooked something. It might be a step in the right direction." His face became stern. "So I'm to blame now? After all these years, you're now turning it on me?" Eva felt her heart sink. "No, Richard, it wasn't my intention. All I want to do is look into every avenue for us." With a bang of his fork, he sprang suddenly from the table. "I have had enough of this. I'm leaving." As he stormed out, the door slammed behind him, and Eva watched helplessly. The weight of their failing marriage was bearing down on her as she buried her face in her hands. Weeks passed with hardly any communication between them. Holding on to the hope that Richard might change his mind, Eva concentrated on her work and her garden. She was aware of his pain, but she also knew that if they both worked, their love could withstand this storm. Richard arrived home one evening appearing more exhausted than normal. He avoided looking at her as he plopped down hard